Welcome to Wednesday, April the 19th call. It's great to see all of you. Love it, love it, love it. I am wanting to share with you a little bit more around the Chat GPT. So I have a couple of different messages for you. And so for those of you using Chat GPT, if you want to add anything, please feel free to do that. So I have the Chat GPT Plus, right? So I'm paying for it. I did the free one for the longest time, which I loved. And then they started putting restrictions on how often you could be on it when it was free. And if there was a lot of people that were using it, the people that had the free membership got booted off, kind of thing. So I knew that I would be playing around with it quite a bit. So it's the Chat GPT Plus. So I use the Open AI source. So there's lots out there. There's Jasper.ai, there's Copy.ai, and all of them use the plugin Chat GPT. So it's just a matter of what platform you're most comfortable on. So I use chat.openai.com. That's where I'm gonna go. And I want to share something kind of cool with you today. I was playing around with this because I'm going to speak to some of the summit speakers today, and we're going to talk about lead gen, which can be difficult for people. And so what I wrote, I gave a very specific instruction. So if you have not been familiar with the chat, the more specific you can be in your tone and your audience and who you are. Even adding a bio can be important. And I look at this as one big experiment, right? And so I asked it, so I gave it like as a Sacred Art of Business coach, my audience, what would they suggest? So I put, as an expert in marketing, what lead generation would you suggest so I can attract them into my marketing funnel? So I used regular marketing words for ChatGPT because it probably doesn't understand my own language quite yet around sacred commerce, sacred economics. And so then it gave me just your basic information about lead gen. So nothing new for me, but might be new to an audience who wasn't familiar with lead gen. It suggested ebooks. So I said, great. Can you help me with some titles for an ebook? So based on what I fed it, Sacred Art of Business Coach, my audience, this is what it gave me. So the 10 ebook suggestions of the titles, right? So I'll just kind of show this to you on screen. But if you look, they're great titles. And so for me, I speak like I write. And the most difficult thing for me is coming up with titles or coming up with like the idea. And so it came up with 10 great ideas. So one being the Sacred Art of Business, harnessing the power of divine feminine energy for success. I love that title. I think that just rocks. From patriarchy to partnership, a new paradigm for women in business. I'm like, this is just so cool. So it really gave me some fun titles to work with. It also suggested that I'd write a checklist. So I asked, well, great, what kind of checklists would my audience want? And then it gave me 10 more titles. Some of them are the same, but it gave me the thought that it would be, a checklist. Now I was thinking like checklist, but this is just, more content. Now I could have gone in and asked it to, be more specific or be more general, but there's 10 more talk titles that I could speak on. So I could even take this information, create podcasts around it, which is what I will end up doing, right? So I probably have at least, I don't know, the next 12 weeks of podcasts right now, titles, right? At least. And then I could take this even further, which is what I did. And I said, can you write one of these? right? So would you be able to create a checklist for the five universal laws of business success, a checklist for connecting with your ideal customers? And it wrote an outline for me. Now, some of it's, words that I use, some of it isn't, but it's a great outline, for me to go, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And sometimes truly, so when you look at, so if I look at my target audience, so there's some of the verbiage that I would want to change, but it's simple. And so one of my challenges as a writer is I make things very complex because I write as like I speak. So the benefit of using chat is it actually simplifies things for me. And then I can go and take, if I wanted to, I could write more on all of these. So I could simply take this checklist if I wanted to, and I could write a blog, that was longer, or an ebook that was longer, or a guidebook that was longer. And then I asked it to do a bit more. So I asked it to take those 10 titles and come up with a checklist. Now, it took the original 10, not the second 10. So chat's not perfect. My direction was maybe a bit too vague. And then it gave me, again, content ideas. So the Sacred Art of Business, Harnessing the Power of Divine Feminine, right? Gives you a checklist or a guide. Right. And then Marketing with Heart. So what's really, really cool about something like this, so it gave me 9 more. It stopped. So here it stopped at 8, you'll see. So I asked it to continue, and it continued its thoughts. And I just went a bit deeper. What content would you write with the title of the 10 steps to transform your business, the power of storytelling? So it gave me more steps. Again, it doesn't write an entire book, although some people are saying it will write an entire book for you. I have not yet been able to figure out how to make that happen. And then it talked about a brand narrative. I'd never heard of that. So I actually asked it, what's a brand narrative, right? And it gave me that. Then I thought, well, could you write a 1,500 word blog on the Sacred Art of Connection? And then it wrote a blog. Now, it doesn't look to be 1,500 words, right? Might be, so I would check it, right? And there's other things to do. I mean, you can't just take this and then put it up because you have to check it for plagiarism and things like that as well. So I wanted to share the profundity, is that an actual word? My word people? Okay. Because one of the challenges I think that we have, I'll stop this for a second, I'll show you this next document, is as when you're doing online marketing and we're wanting to, so we can emit the frequency of, let's say, abundance or prosperity, we also need to take inspired action. And if your business model is that you want to find clients, right, raise your hand on online, then there is the need. I don't like that word, but okay, that's not my word. There is a need, a requirement to create, and rather than I'll use the funnel aspect, right? But to create a way for you to connect with your ideal client. So remember, your ideal client isn't laying in bed thinking about your product and services per se, but's laying in bed with a problem, like what keeps them up at night. And so we can say, well, stress keeps them up. Okay, well, what kind of stress? I was having a conversation with Candace, one of the co-hosts from Clarity Confidence Connection, and we were talking about this. And so I have these 2 things that I keep in mind whenever I'm developing content specifically to work in attracting, I'll use those words, attracting my ideal client. So the first thing I remind myself is that people aren't looking for a drill or a hammer, they're looking for a hole in the wall. And what does that look like? So they're looking for, right? They're looking for the hole in the wall. They're laying in bed at night and they have great concern or a little bit of concern of something. And so they're not laying in bed at night thinking, I wish I had like the best mindset coach ever, right? Or if I wish I had the best project manager ever, or whatever it is, excuse me, that you do. But so when Candace and I were talking last night, she was saying she was talking about the summit that's coming up, and she said, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was thinking, what balls have we dropped? And so then we were talking about marketing. I said, that's what I'm talking about. I said, like you had stress in your life, and so people will speak to stress, but even speaking further, like deeper than that, it's like balls dropping, right? She's worried about balls dropping. That is her stress. And so if someone spoke to her like, do you worry about balls dropping at night? We have this really cool project management tool. She'd be like, hey, that's me. So when we think about our audience, we want to think about things like that, like what's keeping them up at night. And then we can utilize ChatGPT for, to help us create lead gen strategies, right? And as I said, I haven't found a way. I hear people talking about all the time about writing a book. Kim and I, and I'm so glad you're here today. Kim and I have talked about that. So Kim, of course, is a writer and editor. And we've talked about that. And so far, even with some really cool chats, prompts, there's information there, but it certainly doesn't sound like me. So I think it would depend on what your intention is, right? And so how I see this is utilizing chat for like the ideas that I shared with you, and then experimenting a little bit with it. And then if you're writing an ebook or writing a book, more so even than a guide or something like that, ensuring that you have someone, either you write it if you're a writer, or you have someone on your team. But one of the fun things I did do, this will go back to when we're creating these different funnels, a lot of what's required of us is to experiment a little bit. But if you're not a writer, then the experiment process can be painful, and then you don't do it. Like let's be real, right? Then it's not being done. So how can we utilize different tools to help us, like, experiment? What would that look like? So I end up writing a guidebook. Now, I want to share this with you. The content of the guidebook does not match my tone, right? It a little bit doesn't match my personality. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to share it with you and show it with you, because you can have it right for you, and just use caution, right? So I'm all about, yes, let's use it as a tool, and what are the other possibilities? So I took one of my audios from the morning that I did here. I had it transcribed, and then I ran it through something called Quillbot to fix the errors, right? The grammatical errors. Then I put it through chat to see if it would write a book, and it didn't, right? So that's what it did. But what we finally settled upon was a guidebook, a guide and workbook. And so then I went into Canva, created a book, a template of a workbook, right? So, I mean, this one's not branded at all, because I was just playing around with it. And so it is not quite the language that I would use, but I did want to show it to you. So you can create, my point being, you can create, right, some simple content. But what I really did love was when I asked it to help me find questions to, around the contemplation of, so this one is around centered awareness. The questions that came up for the workbook were phenomenal, right? And so I thought, well, that's really, really cool. And so then I created this little guide, and it's how many pages? And again, it's not perfect. There was mistakes in it. It doesn't reflect my tone, but it did give me the sense of what's possible for creating lead gen strategies. And I think that's that point of it, that piece of it is really important, right? Is that we can utilize it for different pieces of it, right? And play around with it. Now, the benefit of using chat to play around with it is that we can then take these different lead strategies and send them out into the world, right? So if we're on any of the social platforms and we're using the platforms to speak, so it's as if you were speaking on a summit, right? You're using the platform to speak, to share your message. Then what can happen with it is you can say, hey, would you like my guide on centered awareness, my workbook and guide on centered awareness? And then people can say yes. So then you have one or two, you could just send it to them, right? Which is a more informal way of connecting and collecting, right? Information, because I noticed that Tracy, she said she wanted it. So then I would make note of who took the guide. And then I would do follow-up with, what did you think of the guide, right? Was there any point in there that was confusing? And I would go to make connection and go to create a phone call with someone. My way of doing business is, this isn't code hidden for sales call. This is, let's have a conversation around what it is that we're doing. So we can use Chat GPT for to kind of guide us through. And originally the chat was the OpenAI concept was designed for productivity, right? So you can even ask it some productivity tips if you want to. So you don't have to use it just for social media. You can use it in in other ways, right? Anne said something here as well. Good. Yes, thank you, Anne. And so when you have the guides, what's important, of course, is having the back end software, which is one of Anne's expertise, right? So to ensure that you have a way to do the follow-up, to do the flow, right? So in the world of marketing, we would say like the marketing funnel, right? Having a way and a ways and means to do that. So you can keep it really informal at first. And probably what I would end up doing is I would play around with, six guides, or 3 to 5 for sure, guides and workbooks. And I would start talking about it in different platforms. And I would then follow up with the people who took the guide and ask them what they wanted, what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, what resonated, what didn't resonate. I would do market research. And then through the market research, then I would decide which one of those, or which, it might be all three. If all three were great, then we could create a marketing funnel around that, right? And so I think this is where chat really comes into place, because it can save you time on some of the creative pieces like that. That guidebook that I did took me a long time because of all of the steps that I did. It took the audio, went through Quillbot, tried to do it. So that probably took me 2 hours, right? That little guidebook. It probably would have taken me 10 if I wouldn't have used chat, right, to do that. And then the other one that I showed you, the first lines of all that took about 10 minutes, maybe, if that, to come up with all that. So And yes, so yes, Anna's saying you could use it for simple YouTube clips as well as 30-second promotions. It's a phenomenal, right? It's a phenomenal. So Sherry, I like that. Sherry adds, I lie in bed saying, "Oh, I had the best coach ever." Awesome.
I don't understand.
Oh,
hi Siri.
there we go.
Like that Siri.
Siri doesn't understand, right? There you go. So sorry. And so that was the first message that I wanted to share with you. The second message that came up this morning through meditation was, and I think it was for me as well, so maybe it's just for me, but I'm going to share it anyhow, is the importance of having a beginning and end to, what was the word that was given? It was like kind of like a strategy. So the words that came to me was, it's important to have a timeline around what you're working towards. And it wasn't about money, right? But it was like, it's important to have a timeline on what you're working towards. So what came into my circle of awareness was the importance of having the timeline. So in the next 12 weeks, what will I do to focus on my health and wellness? Right. And so it was just that reminder I brought in before the 12-week year by Brian Moran, one of my favorite, guides, one of my favorite books. But to take a look at a project, let's say that you're doing, and have a time frame around it. Right. So we have our spiritual vision where we know where we want our life to look like. We have our big, hairy, audacious goals. We have a daily practice of, right, imagining and visualizing, a daily practice of gratitude, right, with our I am statements, our affirmations, our gratitude statements. And all of that is essential, is what I'm hearing. Essential, right, to create and manifest what you desire, and to also remember to put a timeline around some of the things, right? And as I said, I don't know if that was for me specifically, or if it was for everyone. So I just wanted to share that. So if I asked you the following question, what would you like to create in the next 12 weeks? Right. Now, for you, if a money goal, it feels sexy and magical and fun, then create a money goal. For a lot of people, that's not sexy and fun. And so ask yourself, is that because you're in resistance to setting a money goal, or it doesn't resonate with you, which is a different energy? And then have this opportunity to go, okay, what does this look like in this next 12 weeks? If the path is right, I want to feel this way, and this is what I want at the end of the 12 weeks. This is what I'm moving towards at the end of 12 weeks. Then you'll be guided as to what steps to take, because you simply can get up in the morning and go, great, so here's my 12-week intention. You can use goal, right? And so what's next? What do I need to do today then to move one step closer towards that intention or goal? And it allows us to put things, because from a human being perspective, if we have a year to accomplish something, we'll accomplish it in a year. If we give ourselves 12 weeks to accomplish something, we'll do it in 12 weeks. So when I talk about balancing the divine masculine, divine feminine, the divine masculine, that's the doer in us, right? That's the action taker. And so we bring that into inspired action, right? And then in the time frame that we've talked about. Now, if you have a neurodivergent brain, right, like myself, you can look at what are all the projects, or what is the project that in 12 weeks. And then we of course work better when we're facing a really, really tight deadline, right? When there's a bit of pressure. And so then how can you create a tighter deadline perhaps in one of the pieces of the project? Or how do you, for me, what I would do is break it down into mini deadlines. And then I would have a weekly deadline. And I would need that for my neurodivergent brain to create a bit more, okay, yeah, remember to do that, right? And then also remind myself that as at the beginning of the deadline, if I had a deadline, I would probably find myself not doing the work, because that's the neurodivergent brain. They're like, oh, I have something that has a deadline, so I'm going to go and brush the toilet with a toothbrush, because that looks like it's way more important than this over here. And so then just having the grace to know that that's how I'm going to behave. And so then I build in different components, to help me along the way, so that I can create the path of least resistance to the goal or the project that I've have created in the next 12 weeks, right? So two kind of very distinct thoughts. One, have a timeline, have a time frame around what you want. And then that's, I guess you can reverse engineer it if that's fun for you. For some of you, you won't have to reverse engineer. For some of you who just manifest differently, you're just going to have that. This is what's going to happen the next 12 weeks, and it will magically unfold for you. Others, you're going to have to reverse engineer it. There's no right or wrong way. Do what resonates with you. And if you're in resistance, then we can have a chat about where the resistance is coming from. The other thought was just utilizing ChatGPT to your advantage, but knowing that it's not the end all and be all. What I really see is it allowing us to create short blog posts, short, maybe even titles for, ebooks, short guides and workbooks that we can create if we want to experiment in lead gen. And because it will save you time in that area, right? Sharing your knowledge in really, really simple guides and workbooks, right? If Canva and creation is not your thing, there are lots of other people, like graphic artists out there who can do it. There's people on Fiverr who you might want to try. I personally don't use Fiverr. I have other people in my life I've been using for a while. That workbook I just created on my own. I went to Canva. I have the pro account and said workbook template, found one that I liked. Or actually, I think this was a guide template, right? And found one that I liked and changed the colors and the photos to match what I was doing, right? So we can start playing around. We can have fun. I guess I think really the message is to have fun with the experimentation of what sacred marketing is all about, right? Because it's meant to be fun. We're meant to have fun with it. It's not meant to be laborious in nature, right? It's meant to have a lot of fun. All right, I'm just gonna stop. Just record this again. So I wanted the last bit of sharing this is when we're looking at our audience, our target audience is a difference. There's different stages of where they're at in their life. So there are some of our ideal client who is ready to make change and transformation right now. Like they've been in pain long enough. They're actually actively looking for a solution to buy. Then there's people who are in awareness that they have a problem and they're in research. And then there's people who don't even know they have a problem and they're online. Something doesn't feel right, but a title of something might like connect with them and go, oh my goodness, that's exactly how I feel. I didn't realize it was even a problem yet. I thought I was alone in this, right? So I think that the benefit of using something like chat is that we can create a marketing material, a piece of material, and then we can ask ourselves, where is our ideal client in their journey? And will this piece of marketing material fit in any one of those places? Frank Kern, who I've been following for years, said the people who are ready to buy, who have their credit cards out, there's a lot of competition there. That's where everyone is trying to focus their attention on. He said there are few people that are starting with the, I don't even know I have a problem, but I just feel like something's not right. And so if you have the longevity in you, you can create the relationship with the person who didn't even realize they had a problem until they saw your thing and went, oh my goodness, I have a problem. Right. And then the next pool of people is, I have a problem, but I'm just doing research and I'm not ready to buy. So that's the long game, right? So there's a lot of competition in the pool of credit cards out, and I'm looking for a solution. So if we pull back a little bit and go, okay, where are they in their head space, in their mind? So their mind space, their heart space, their gut space is how I would do it from a sacred marketing perspective. Where are they in those different levels? And then come up with a way to connect with them at where they are in that place. So what would that look like? And so that's where I feel like the lead gen stuff here through ChatGPT could be a lot of fun, because we can, so I'm going to use this word, we can crank out a lot of material to play around with. We're not investing, hundreds or thousands of dollars in what it looks like. And we can experiment with, does it have to be exactly my voice, or can it be partially my voice? Does it have to be exactly the way I speak here, or can the concept or the ideas just start to play, right? And I know for certainly in my world, and I'm assuming it's probably the same with all of you, that it's to get the interest of someone so they'll have conversation with you. And if they have conversation with you, chances are they're going to work with you, if not now, then in the near future. So it's not even about converting into sales, but converting into, I can use the word converting into conversation. I just want to have conversation with people, because I also know if I can't assist them, that I have so many people in my life that can. So the more that I can get the word out there about the sacred art of business, the sacred art of commerce, new concept out there, right? The more that I can even use a little bit of what people know. People are aware of the law of attraction, right? People are aware that there's this disconnect, right? That they're feeling between the way that they're being presented as, this is how you do sales and marketing. It doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good. And so, and especially for someone like me, who I don't write, I talk, but I don't write. It's another ways and means for me to find another platform to connect with more people. So I have a speaking platform, and now I can take that and, in that written word, right, for sure. So, but you brought up a really great point, Sherry, about it doesn't sound like you. So it could be just different prompts. There's something called Heart Speak, which is what Amy Yamada, that's the chat course I'm taking right now, where you actually speak into a voice recorder that can transcribe something that you really believe in, and then it gives you you put that through chat, it gives you a tone, and it gives you a whole bunch of descriptions, and then anytime you go to write something, you add that heart speech, it's called, to it, and then it takes that tone and the words that you use and creates something that really does sound a lot more like you. And so I think that that's the piece of it. And also knowing there is still a great number of people who are afraid of chat. There is a lot of fear around chat, that it's going to replace marketing people, it's going to replace salespeople, it's going to replace coaches, it will replace writers and authors and all of that. And what will happen, what I see happening, is that we can utilize it for for leverage, right? It can leverage, I think it can leverage writers, content writers, right? I think it could, I mean, imagine, and I've had lots of conversations with my marketing and sales people who own agencies who are freaking out. Some of them are. And I just said to them, how many more clients could you actually work with if you could create their content by taking their voice, having them record their voice, and having some really key prompts. You have a file for your client, you have their voice, right? You have their ideal client in their words, and then you run their content through ChatGPT. You send it to them for approval. It comes back, and then you post it. I said that could take 20 minutes. Whereas when I used to write content we used to charge thousands of dollars a month when we had our sales and marketing agency, because it took a lot of time to write people's content, to get their voice down pat, right? So to learn how to mimic their voice and all of that. And so as an agency or you can do way more, right? As a writer, you might be able to put it through ChatGPT for an outline and then write based on the outline, right? As an editor, I said to Kim, you're going to be so busy because people are going to be, doing this, and it's not going to work, and they're going to not know why. And then you can just say, oh, well, let me take a look at it. And then you can go, well, yeah, does it make sense? Because sometimes the stuff that chat writes, it's like that, there's no connection at all. There's no flow. It's just words on paper, right? And so you absolutely can totally tell when something is run through chat and someone hasn't edited it, right? Very, very true. But wouldn't it be cool if we could write that, and so I just think it's a great opportunity to experiment with our different platforms. So all right, super long day today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Looking forward to tomorrow. Diane, if you need to, I'm happy to send you the workbook if you want. The content is not great, but you could take a look at it as far as what it did create. But yeah, I wanted to put it up and show the possibilities. I think are endless. And from a marketing's perspective, I'm super excited about it. All right. Mwah. Love you.